Christmas List of Richard Lindsay, based on a true story. Richard stared out the window at the swirling snow and wondered if Christmas would really come. He decided it probably wouldn't. Not to their house. Not that year. Not in 1933. Through the frosty pane, he spied the outlines of people in the schoolyard across the street. Richard found his coat and ran out in the storm to see what was happening. The people were grown-ups, men mostly. They seemed to be waiting for something. They stood in a line, and Richard wondered if it was a line to wait for Christmas. They looked down at their scuffed shoes and rubbed their hands to stay warm. Some whispered about the hard times. They had no work that day. Richard's father had always had work, but father got sick. The word by his name in the newspaper was a hard word to spell. Pneumonia. Richard's oldest brother got sick right after father had. He didn't get well either. The sound of a truck chugging up to the school brought Richard's thoughts back to the line. Everyone stood up straight and watched the truck roll to a stop. Two men untied the cover as Richard stretched to see what was inside. Turkeys! A truck full of fresh turkeys! The men in charge began handing a turkey to every grown-up in line. Richard ran home to tell Mother the news. Mother, Mother! He was out of breath. You can get a turkey, Christmas dinner turkey, right across the street. They're there for poor families in the neighborhood. Hurry, Mother, before they're all gone. Mother listened to Richard's story. She took time before she spoke. She leaned down and held his face in her hands. Richard, she said, that is good, but we are not a poor family. We are a family just going through a difficult time. We have everything we need for Christmas. Richard listened, but he wasn't convinced. We don't have a turkey. No, Mother said, but we have a fat red rooster in the chicken coop. You can help your brother get him ready for a fine Christmas dinner. What about the rest of Christmas? Richard said. Where will that come from? Mother was quiet for an even longer time. Finally, she said, I have an idea. She sent Richard to find a pencil and paper. When he returned, Mother said, let's start here. Can you write the names of people you love? I might need help with spelling. I can help, Mother said. Who are the people you love? Richard started to work on his Christmas list. People I love. Grandma Emma, Uncle Ed and Aunt Vi, Eileen, Uncle John, my best friend Heber, Mrs. Cook, Sister Frame, Kenneth, Mary and Ruth and Grace, Mother. When he finished, Richard had written the names of 13 people he loved. He showed the list to Mother. I can feel Christmas coming already, she said. Richard, how could you share Christmas with the people you love? Richard shrugged. He'd never thought about sharing Christmas with people he loved. Could I give them something? What could you give? Mother asked. A present, maybe? But I only have the change I earned from neighborhood jobs. Mother asked, how much change do you have? Richard ran to his room and found the jar under his bed. He counted out the coins on the floor. 2 dimes, 3 nickels, and 65 pennies, he reported. Exactly $1 whole. Mother opened her eyes wide. Really, she said. Such a lucky boy. That much change could buy gifts from a store. Richard looked at his list, and he started to think. The next morning, Richard put his list in his coat pocket and trudged through the snow, carrying his jar to the corner store. He showed his list to the clerk. Together they searched the shelves. They found a handkerchief for Grandma Emma. Richard chose hankies for the aunts, too. He found a tin of marshmallows for his brother, hair clips for his big sisters, and crayons for little Grace. He found a bookmark for his teacher at school and one for his teacher at church. The uncles would get bookmarks, too. Each special present Richard found cost 5 or 10 cents. He picked out a red jawbreaker for his best friend, Heber, and still had 25 cents left. With that, Richard could give Mother the nicest present of all, a bottle of lotion called Italian Balm. Richard poured the coins on the counter. The clerk wrapped each item in a sheet of paper and put them all in a sack. "Young man," he said, "you have chosen wonderful presents. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas to you," Richard said, and he ran out the door with the precious sack tucked tightly under his arm. The next day was Sunday and Christmas Eve. At church they sang about angels. They sang about joy. They sang about a manger in a little town far, far away. That night Richard could barely sleep as he thought about the gifts hiding under his bed. In the morning he could hardly wait for Mother to gather the family. "I have big surprises," Richard announced, and he handed everyone a gift. "Color, color," Gracie cheered as she opened her box of crayons. Mary and Ruth ran to the mirror to try out their new hair clips. Kenneth said he would share one marshmallow now and another one later. Maybe. Richard watched Mother open her gift last. Mother opened gifts very slowly. She studied the fancy bottle and then looked up at him. Only then he noticed that Santa had left fruit and knitted mittens for every child. Richard put on the mittens and hurried out through the snow to deliver more gifts to more people he loved. Heber said Richard was a swell pal and went to work on the jawbreaker. Grandma Emma hugged him. Mrs. Cook called him dear boy. At every house, people he loved welcomed him inside. That afternoon, when the family surrounded the table, Mother said it was Richard's turn to pray. He gave thanks for the rooster dinner, thanks for the furnace, thanks for the coal in the cellar. He gave thanks for the baby who brought Christmas to the world. And then Richard stopped. He was thinking how to say one more feeling in his heart. And we give thanks for the gift of people to love. When Richard finished, they all said amen. He opened his eyes and looked around the table. Richard knew Christmas had really come. Christmas came again and again for Richard, all through his long life. But that was the Christmas he remembered best. I know because Richard was my father, and he told me this story year after year after year. And in the scriptures we read, "And now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians 13:13.